Okay, so in the JavaScript, let's just make sure that we are targeting project class. In other words, we want to target all the projects that is inside the HTML. And for us to do that, I am just going to change this employee right away to project. Okay, so one cool aspect of our code is that we have a function that is going to do all the heavy lifting for us, while we just call the function whenever an event takes place. Now, what we need to change here are just pretty little things. Now, we need to change this name as well. So instead of having it as an employee, we can just change this to project. So I'm just going to change this to project. Also change this to project. Okay, so like I mentioned, if you really want to understand how this code works, just go ahead and subscribe for our employee directory where I wrote this code from scratch. Now, what we need to do right here is we need to make use of a little tweak, right? So first, we want to hide all the elements when a search takes place. Now, for us to even see how all these things work, let's comment all these things. We're going to comment all this. What is going on is hide every of the elements whenever a search happens. Now, employee search, we are not going to be using employee search as well. We can as well use something else. We can say search project. Okay, now if I just say search project, meanwhile this will be an ID in the search input. So let's just copy the ID and go back to our HTML and search for the search input. Search input should be just almost at the top. Yes, so we have the search input here. I'm just going to change this ID to search project. Now with this search project, let's see what is going to happen. If I search anything, we are going to just delete almost everything, because what we are doing is we are searching, however, nothing is happening. Let us refresh. If you search, nothing is happening. But let me show you one trick again. If you come into the events, this is what is doing all of those things you're seeing. So you're you're picking the ID, right? And you're saying add event listener to that very input. Whenever there's an input in that very input that you added the ID, you want to get the event. The event is going to be the value. Take for instance, let's say we want to console.log the value. We want to print out whatever value that is added. We can just say console.log, just put the E, and let's see what happens. Now for us to see what's going on, let's inspect and make sure that we have console open so that we can see all the values coming in. So take for instance, I say Noah for instance. Okay, so searching, unfortunately nothing is happening. Let us just okay, let's see even if we type all. Okay, so if you type all event, you can see that something is pretty much happening. You can see the more you type, the more you see the events take place. This is really, really cool. Okay, let's do it again. In fact, as you delete, as you add, you can see just with that, we can pick events. We can do something when an event happens. Okay, so now that we are taking events and we are sure that we are getting the value that the user is printing for us, we just need to be able to make sense of it in the function. So you can see you're calling the function and you're passing the value to it. You're passing the value to it. And for us to do that, let's just come back to our function. Now I'm going to uncomment all of this and let us do the magic. We say display none for the first. Whenever a search happens, don't display anything. Only display what we filter. Now, let us check for the title, right? Let us check for all the title, all this. Let us search through them. Okay, so what we can do is we can get the text of the title. We know that the title tag is H2 in our document. You can see, let's just navigate to one of the projects. So you can see that the title is H2. So let us pick all the title in each of the elements. You can see, so let's just change this to title. I'm just going to call this title. Then I'll just go ahead and say element.query selector this time around. Element.query selector. I want H2. I'm just going to say H2. Okay, so I want the inner text, and at the same time, I want to change it to uppercase. You can see that the user input, we are converting it to uppercase. So let us also convert whatever the title is to uppercase, so that when we are comparing, it is going to work. You can see VS Code is already canceling this, that you can't find it. We just need to change this title to it. Just title, and that should solve it. Now, for us to know whether the title work, we're going to change our conditional statement a bit. So let us check if whatever we're searching, whatever input is coming, whatever value, let us check if the value is in the title. Okay, so in fact, let's remove all of this extension. Let's remove all of this extension and just say that if there's the title in the search, let us display only that element block. Let's save this and let's search, for instance, magazine. You can see. So it is pretty much that easy to do. We are searching, checking if whatever we are putting in carries the value, right? So it's not something complicated. You're saying if this title, right, includes whatever value is coming from this trigger, whatever value, right, then put it in. Take for instance, if I say magazine, yeah, it's in, but the moment I add another letter, it's gone, right? So, because it doesn't include it anymore. In fact, if I put the letter G, everything that has letter G is going to pop up, and that's pretty cool. Now, another thing we need to cater for with our conditional statement is to check if our value, if it's a filter. Now, what we are doing makes a lot of sense because we are getting the value of inputs. How about when somebody selects recent project? What happens, right? So let's see another thing that we can do. We need to declare another conditional statement. Now we are going to be writing additional if statements, and we are going to be seeing the reason why we need those if statements. Okay, so take for instance, we want to filter recent project. In fact, let's undo the recent project almost at the end. So let's say we want finished project, like all the finished project, which means we need an event, right? We need an event for that purpose. But for us to do that, we need a way to be able to even target this select. Now, what we can do in our HTML is to look for where it is and just call it call this select, just call it project filter. Okay, so now we can add event listener to this select. Coming back to the JavaScript, we're just going to have something similar to this. I just duplicated that, and I'm going to change the event to filter instead. So this should have filter. There shouldn't be, let's correct, let's just make sure it's correct on the JavaScript, on the HTML as well. If I save it and I come back to the JS, in fact, let's just go and check what's going on. Let's assume we come here and we select, you can see nothing is happening. So we need a way to be able to handle the event that comes all the way from this aspect as well. In other words, we need to be able to store the recent or the status. The status is going to be status. Okay, now as for the status, we need to just get the data. Remember, we use data, right? So to get data in JavaScript, or to target or to retrieve the data attribute in JavaScript, you will use data set. Now, data set dot the data set name or the data attribute name. In this case, let me show you what I mean. For you to get a dataset attribute or a data value in JavaScript, you call the dataset. Then you extend to the data name, which is going to be status. Let's see how that works. So you say dataset, which works. Then you say dot the status. Then you can remove this inner, because this is going to give you the value. Now, we need an if statement to check if the dataset value, right, matches whatever the user selects, which means we need an else if. So we're just going to say else if. So now we're going to say that if, check for status, right? If the value in status tallies, in fact, let's just copy this entirely and paste it here. But this time around, we are targeting status. So let's just say display block. And if we refresh and select finish project, you can see you only see finished project. Let's hover on it and see that we are sure finished project. If you also select ongoing, you see that you see only ongoing project. And check the store project, you see store project only, right? Now, this is not a rocket science. We are just getting the selected value, bringing it into the function, and checking if the data attributes we added that the other time, checking if is the same thing. And that is pretty much easier. You can rewatch this video if nothing is clear to you. Okay, so now that we have something working, there's something wrong anyways. If I come back and select recent project, everything work, and select finish project, everything work, everything really work. Yeah, seems everything work. And if I select this, everything seems to be working fine. However, oftentimes you are going to be having situations where you want to use filter by the dates. As you can see, you want to use this very segment to do your filter. Now, it works several ways. Let's see how we can handle that. Since right now, this is working as recent project, that makes a lot of sense, but oftentimes you would need to use hour, you need to use time, you need to use whatever it is In fact, sincerely, I can tell you that we are done with this segment of the project. However, I want to also show you some things that you can add whenever there's needs. Okay, so coming back here, I can pretty much just change this title. This time around, we want recent. So if you guess right, we need to be able to target which tag is actually saving or storing the hours. Let's see. This is p tag. I think is the only p tag. Yes, so we can just target the p tag. You can see, let's just go for the p tag. So we can use query selector. You can just say query selector. We call the p tag. Then we say inner to uppercase. That is fine. Okay. So now we want to exclude recent from this very segment. We want to exclude only recent. So what we can do is we can say if the value is not equals to recent first. So we can say if whatever value is coming into the function is not equals to the value recent, then we need to close this. Yes. So we are saying if the value is not equals to recent, let's see what we mean. If we come here and click on any other thing, something is wrong. Let's check what we have. Okay, this should be not. Like I mentioned, is not equals to, yes. So let's save it and refresh. If we check any other version, any other select, it should work. But whenever is recent, it won't do anything. Whenever the value is recent, it shouldn't do anything. Right? Because we want to undo recent separately. You can see recent is not giving us anything. Now let's declare another else if. Let me just duplicate this one. So this time around, we want to say if the value, right, is equals to recent. So we want, if the value now is equals to recent, okay, we want something to happen. So you might remember, we are saying, take for instance, let's even just remove this entirely. This should work. If I say if the value is equals to recent, it's displaying everything. Just displaying everything because we haven't told it what to pick entirely. So if I come back, I'm just going to return this. And we say recent instead of status. We say recent. If we say recent has hours in it, remember what we're looking at. It can be dates. It can be dates you're looking at, right? But right now, because we are not looking at dates, we're looking at hour. We want whatever has hour means is recent actually. So we can just look for the value. If it has the value of hour, let's even just check what we have, right? If we say recent, you can see it's only showing something with hour. In fact, let's see everything. How about this one showing recently? How about that? Let's add that as well. So anything that is showing hour should be able to show. As you can see, this one is showing 1 day ago. But anything that has hour and anything that has recent should work. So we can just say or if this contains recent. I'm just going to say recent. Now let's see how that works. It should be able to give us this and this. So let's say recent. You can see it gives us what is with hour and what has recent. Okay, let's even add day. let's add D, whatever has D. So if you want to, by extension, you can just even add the or again and just add D here. If you refresh and you say recent, you can see it also added whatever has the keyword of D. I'm just going to leave it as recent only. Now, just to recap what we've done, and we've really done a lot of work. If you search recent, you can see recent. If you search finished project, you see finished project. You search this, you can see what you get. If you come back here, you see every of the projects. And if you come to stall, you see projects that are stalled. And as well, if you search, let's just say that we want guideline. You can see that you have guideline, you have graphics, because the both of them has GU, right? And pretty much that's how this thing really work. So if you look at it with less than few lines of code, we're able to add search functionality to our dashboard. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.